Hi, everybody. My name is Sebastien Bert. I head up strategic partnerships at Swiss Re. We're a relatively new group. We were created in 2019 to address all the new entrants in the marketplace that are non-insurance companies. So we work a lot with Insurtechs, but also companies that do embedded insurance, so large corporates with captive customer bases. So we're looking for new reinsurance clients. And we enable that strategy by giving risk capital, and our solution services, and we also help orchestrate their products through our global network of partnerships.
Denise, Garth, I am the Chief Strategy Officer at Majesco. Majesco is a technology provider for both the P&C and the L&A segments of the industry. We provide core data and analytics, digital. We've got distribution management, and we have an ecosystem of a number of partners that are deeply integrated into our core systems to extend the capabilities to our customers to help them kind of move forward. We've been very involved in the Insurtech space since the very beginning, and work with a number of the Insurtechs and have acquired a few of the Insurtechs as well. So lots of interesting things in the market.
Yaron Ben-Zvi. I'm the CEO and founder of Haven Technologies. We are a modern cloud-based platform for the life and annuity industry. So we provide technology from quote to claim, if you will, for life insurers and annuity insurers. Previously, I was also the founder of Haven Life. I've been involved in the Insurtech space for a long time. I sort of have lived both the carrier distribution and now the technology sides of the world, and so excited to share different perspectives on that. Good to be with you all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Leftley. I'm the co-founder for microinsurance company, now called MIC Global. We are a Lloyd's syndicate, which specializes in originally, we specialized in doing insurance, low-ticket insurance for people in Africa and Asia. Got out to about 70 million customers globally, and then realized that a lot of what we learned could also be used for kind of gig workers and platforms in places like the US and in Europe. And so started working with a number of the kind of ride-sharing, kind of food delivery type companies, as well as P2P platforms, in using insurance to attract customers, retain customers, and kind of change kind of customer performance.
So firstly, I wanted to start by asking you all about the strategic and operational value of agility for your organizations. Let's start with Denise. How has agility benefited your business?
So I think agility has become very much a table stakes aspect for the industry. And I think that what we have experienced over the last 5 to 7 years is that the pace of change in particular, and all aspects of new customer expectations and demands, new competitors, new markets, new innovative products, all of those things are really requiring insurers to kind of take a step back and kind of reevaluate how do they really run their operation. There's an element of running your existing operations really effectively and efficiently, and you can apply some agility to that at trying to do some things that are going to take care of the business today. But to be honest, it's really about what are you going to do for your business for the future? Because the buying segment of the industry, your buyers have flipped now to millennials and Gen Z that really have a different set of expectations of fast. Everything's integrated. Everything has a very digitized kind of perspective. And so to get there, you really have to rethink your foundation, both your operational model, but also your technology model. And I can say for a fact that SaaS, cloud, API-driven, microservices-driven, all those kind of buzzwords, those are absolutely critical to achieve agility and to be able to partner with people out there that are going to help you deliver what is needed.
Thank you, Denise. And Yaron, in the context of Haven Technologies.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the way we really think about agility, it's actually pretty simple, I think. It's really about being able to integrate learnings that you have from the marketplace, from data that you see from your competitors, and integrate those into your business, right? And being able to do it quickly and at low cost, right? And especially, I think, if you think about kind of the world that we're all navigating now, in an uncertain world, the more that sort of time and cost goes down, the more you're able to react to that. And so a lot of things become important as you think about how to actually make your business agile. But I think just to kind of make it a real example for people, I think COVID was actually, certainly in the life space, a really great example, right? Something that was uncertain, all of a sudden, all the sort of life carriers were reacting to. And the ones that were well positioned from an agility perspective, I think were able to react faster, right? At a moment where actually life insurers were seeing the demand for their product up, the ones who weren't agile were least able to be able to sort of respond to that business. The ones that had thought about technology, the ones that had thought about sort of underwriting practices differently, were able to actually adopt and sort of turn on a dime. So that's just, I think there's a lot that goes into that. Technology, as Denise was saying, was a big thing, but I think the one we don't talk about as much is also people. So.
Thank you, Yaron. And I think this is a really interesting point you make about how agility can help with resilience, particularly when you're faced with external risks such as so large as COVID. Richard, yes.
Yeah, so I was slightly worried about being invited to a panel about agility at an insurance conference, because let's face it, the insurance industry isn't really known for its agility, is it? And so, I kind of thought it was a bit of a hospital pass, and I was a bit worried, maybe it wouldn't go that well. But, I've really enjoyed kind of getting to know the other panelists, and maybe it's changed my mind. But for us as a company, we started off 20 years ago selling insurance into markets where 98% of people didn't have insurance. So we were selling insurance to people that cost like 3 cents to $1 a month. Those are the kind of products that we were selling. And in order to do that, you had to partner with organizations like banks and mobile phone companies in order to get to the kind of scale, right? To sign up, I think our fastest growing product signed up 20 million people in 140 days. So, you have to have these kind of partnerships. And what you come to realize as an insurance player, at the time we were a broker, so we were like an Insurtech. We weren't yet a reinsurance company, was that these telcos and banks that were critical to our success in terms of being able to scale, they really are agile, right? They really do want to kind of get to market in kind of 4 weeks. I mean, so that product that we launched that signed up 20 million people, we were given 8 weeks from the first conversation to it going live. And on the first day, we signed up 1 million people, and we didn't have enough storage space, right? We didn't have enough computing space in our hard drives because AWS wasn't yet invented at that point. So we were plugging in kind of thumb drives into the servers, trying to kind of create storage space. It was mad. So agility, I think, means different things to different people. But as an industry, when we're talking about like partnerships and scale, we've got to understand that we are quite often the least agile in that kind of partnership mix. And therefore, we've got to find a way to get as agile as the banks, the telcos, the platforms that we're going to work with.
Thank you, Richard. And I really like your point around how it could be a competitive advantage within the industry. I think that's really powerful. Sebastien, what about in the context for us?
So I'm going to piggyback off of Richard because as Richard mentioned, working with large insurance companies, especially if you're a smaller entity, is tougher, right? Look, it's the nature of the beast. When you're a startup, it is easy to be agile. And for large companies, if you think about how we're set up, the organizational structure. So when I think about agility, I think about team structure, right? That's really important. In part, that's why our team was created, to respond to those market needs and to be more responsive. So it doesn't mean we're making partnerships faster. It's just making having quicker decision making within a team and being transparent. Like, hey, what's going to work and what's not going to work. So if a partnership is not going to come to fruition, let them know that. Especially working with startups, time is such a critical element because it's equity that you're burning. So the other thing too, I think about agility is just employee engagement, right? There's a ton of talent coming into our industry, and people want to be engaged and they want to have ownership. And something that I've observed more within larger organizations, they're seeing other tech verticals, and if you ever have a chance, like research single thread ownership, right? That's becoming more of a popular theme about constructing teams. So instead of having lots of different XFTs and it's like, decision by committee, you're having smaller groups having more decision power, and they're very focused on a particular niche. That's in part what our team does, right? We specifically focus on embedded insurance and Insurtech, but we do that business day in, day out, and we make decisions around that. So, team, and also, it's like, all right, how do you make the process faster to engage with partners for agility?
Thank you. And you mentioned some of the themes and trends that you've seen within your team, but also in the broader market. So I'd be interested, especially if you could expand on some of those trends and themes that you've seen across the insurance market in the agility space.
Yeah, so we've talked about smaller teams and creating more agility. The other thing, the question of build, buy, or partner, right? And especially for something you're entering in a new space, partnership is the lower resource investment, right? To get to market, right? So whether you're instead of building your own technology or buying a team, which is pretty expensive, we're seeing companies think through, it's like, all right, how do I partner with a right entity to get to that market that I want to be in? So we're seeing amazing collaboration happening in the insurance industry, not only just like Insurtechs, but also large corporates. And I know Richard does a lot of that, so I'm not going to steal his thunder over there. But corporates entering the space like, hey, how do I partner with insurers to unlock value for our customers?
Well, it seems appropriate. Then we come to you, Richard.
Thanks. So, I mean, exactly. I think the big theme that I see is around these partnerships, is around using partnerships to get to scale. And I think all too often as an industry, insurance is really, really focused on the product. I don't know how many of you have gone into a pitch meeting and you've got like classic pitch slides, which is this is who we are, this is our customers, this is the size of our balance sheet, here's our products. And that's kind of a very standard way that insurance companies tend to think about themselves. But it's also a fantastic way to get completely commoditized, right? And actually just get compared on price. So, we've been this kind of small, kind of niche, startup, and we've ended up serving 64 million customers. The way that most of those customers have come to us is through these kind of partnerships with telcos, with platforms, with banks. And what we found was that the big theme that I think is really important in being able to secure those partnerships is that we didn't go in there and try and sell them on our product. What we did was we went into those meetings and we tried to understand what the problem was, right? So the banks had, bank accounts that people weren't using, or the gig working platforms were having trouble attracting workers, or the telcos had problems with kind of consumer stickiness or kind of like declining revenues per user. And so we tried to understand what their problem was, and then how could we use insurance to address that problem? Because quite frankly, those platforms and businesses didn't exist to sell insurance, right? They're not going to just sell insurance. They're not interested in selling insurance. They could sell McDonald's vouchers or cinema vouchers or whatever, right? So if you've got to convince them around insurance, you've got to convince them that you are a solution to the problems that they're facing. Then they will take on pushing and distributing your product. And I think that's been a key theme for us around this question of agility.
Thank you. And Denise, I'm fascinated as a Chief Strategy Officer to get your perspective on some of the broader themes and trends you've seen.
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting things that I think we've learned as an industry that Insurtech startups have really taught us, those of us being in the traditional side for decades, if not centuries, is that we've got to take a different kind of approach. And that approach is to kind of test and learn and to not be afraid to fail and to try to stand up things in a very rapid pace. So we're seeing now customers who are well-established traditional insurers and reinsurers and brokers taking that experience of Insurtechs and applying it, that they're standing up a separate new product with a whole different solution. They're standing it up in 10, 12 weeks, bringing cyber to market, bringing a new BOP to market, whatever it may be, maybe bringing a new benefit to market. At the same time, the partnerships are expanding to create real value to the customer. And one of the pieces that we've really looked at in some of our research is that the customers now expect not just the risk product, but they expect your experience. That gets to that digital engagement. They also want value-added services. And that value-added services is low-hanging fruit. That's through partnerships that you can bring something to the table that gets attached with the product that gives them something more than just paying the premium for the risk product, that adds value to the relationship and gives you a reason to really engage with them. And so I think looking at how you can kind of either stand up a new product, you can stand up a new for a new market, stand up a system and test and learn. You don't have to have it integrated with everything internally. Doing that creates, once again, your big operational model. Start small and then work from that. And I think it gives you the ability to kind of meet opportunities in the market.
Definitely. And Yaron, I'm very interested as well in your perspective from a technology point of view.
Yeah, sure. So first thing I'll say is I do think, and I think you're hearing this, is that agility isn't something that exists just in small companies. And I think more and more we're seeing bigger companies, they aren't agile yet, but I think they're realizing that it's not something that's just for others or that can exist in a silo somewhere, but they're, I think, asking how can we sort of transform parts of the business to be more agile, right? And I think how you get there is not easy, but it's very possible, right? So we have seen, for example, working with our client MassMutual, when the pandemic hit, we launched a free life insurance product for frontline COVID healthcare workers in about 6 weeks, right? Heretofore in the life space, I think pretty much unheard of, right? But what that takes is a few things. What that takes, and the themes that we're now seeing, is, first of all, technology not being a thing that lives on the side of the business, but is something very much incorporated as part of the strategic business, right? It's a topic that the CEO is engaged in. It's a topic that the board is engaged in. It's not something that sits on the side of the business when the business is ready and just says, hey, do this for me, right? So I think that's one really important theme. The other really important theme is certainly beyond the technology is also the people and the culture aspect. So I was sitting here listening to Richard's story about plugging in USBs and thinking no carrier I've ever worked with would be willing to do something like that, right? But I think the lesson is like sort of, tuning in your risk to what is possible, because as risk management entities, too many carriers have a zero risk tolerance policy, and that is not possible with an agile mindset, right? So it's a matter of being able to quantify that and say, maybe I'm not the guy plugging in USBs, but I am willing to take on certain other types of risk.
And you mentioned that achieving business agility is not easy. So I'm very interested to hear from the panel about some of the barriers encountered and mistakes you've had, or maybe even failures you've had when deploying business agility. And I thought I'd maybe start off again with Denise here.
I would say that there's a word I like to use, is that I think that organizations need to embrace outside-in thinking. And what I mean by that is that you've got to come from the customer's perspective. And that isn't just the agents and brokers, that's the real customer who's buying the product. And that's a really difficult thing to do because we're so focused about being operationally really efficient and effective that we focus on what it is that we need inside our organization and not enough on the outside. I think bringing in talent or individuals who may have that outside-in thinking, sometimes they're considered rebel rousers because they have out-of-the-box thinking. They challenge the status quo. They ask why. They're like a 2-year-old. Why? I think we need to have more of that in our organizations in a really productive way and bringing that in. And I think embracing that with those that understand the business and understand the regulatory requirements around it, there has to be a happy medium between those two. And we've got to be able to embrace that.
I think, my experience, I've worked in the Insurtech space for 21 years now. And the reason that we went from being an Insurtech, to being an MGA, and from being an MGA to being a reinsurance company, and then from a reinsurance company to being a Lloyd's syndicate, was because we became really frustrated with not being able to get the products that we wanted from the traditional kind of insurance players. And I think things have changed. It's great. Sebastian's team, and others, in other kind of reinsurance companies have kind of come about, but that's been a relatively new thing, where people have realized. So I think, my point is that the biggest barrier to agility is really twofold. One is like you can only go as fast as any partner is willing to go. So the slowest moving partner is always going to dictate the pace. And historically, unfortunately, I think that's been the insurance industry, right, in a number of these partnerships. So that needs to change. But it's also an opportunity, because if you can change quickly, then there are a number of organizations who want to move quickly and they want to work with you, right? So it's also an opportunity for people like me to work with the MGAs and the other Insurtechs who share that frustration. And having been in that position, I understand that. So now I'm a reinsurer, I can kind of do something about it as well. But then internally, and I think we've talked about this, it's like you have to structure yourself internally to have a culture of agility and to constantly ask the questions about why we're doing this process or that process, and how can we keep in control of the business but also get to market quickly.
Sebastien, to you.
I think Richard said that really well, and our team orchestrates partnerships day in, day out, right? And one of the advantages that we have is we're a global reinsurer, and we have relationships across many carriers, right? They're our clients. And when we're trying to put together these partnerships with Insurtechs or embedded insurance partners, we have insights about insurance companies. And I can tell you, agility means something different for every insurance company. And when you're looking at working with an insurance carrier, have a deep understanding. And it's not just like their appetite for whatever you're selling or you want to partner on, but think about like their systems, and it's all legacy stuff, right? It's not only just systems, but also through distribution. Some companies, they might have a specific division that's like, hey, we'd love to partner with you and enter a new space, but they got 3 other divisions that are competing in the same product, right? And it's like, how do you get over that channel conflict? The other aspect is just culture, right? I've seen carriers that are like, hey, we want to go into a new space and we're going to be agile. But it's really difficult to change a culture, and especially for insurance companies that have been around for decades and some have been around for hundreds of years, just to turn that switch. So, one thing that we look often for, and when we're thinking about partnerships, is just what is the executive sponsorship, right? And how much do they believe in the new area that they're going into? Because there's hundreds of insurance companies. Just in the U.S., there's over 500 insurance companies. Wrap your mind around that. So there's a lot of potential, different companies you can work with, and they're all different.
I've been in the life space for 13 years now, which I still feel like the new guy sometimes, but I've been around enough to make a lot of mistakes, which was your question. So I've made a bunch of mistakes, right? I've built technology that nobody's used before. I'm thinking back to the first time we launched an accelerated underwriting program. We were nowhere near what our benchmarks were. And every time I've made a mistake, I think it hasn't really been the technology, but rather it's the context and the ecosystem. In some ways, I think it's interesting what Richard said is you're only as agile as your least agile partner. I would actually say that's true internally too. You're only as agile as your least agile internal partner or least agile internal system as well, right? Because if you're launching a new product and that's your way of being agile, it's great that you have one system working well, but unless you have an entire ecosystem that can move quickly, you're going to be sort of hampered by whatever that looks like. So I think a lot of the learnings to me are, as you think about whatever agile it means to you, really considering it as, first off, not just a project, but a kind of ongoing venture and commitment. And secondly, not just a sort of one slice of the business, but kind of a micro ecosystem that you're building that's full of technology, people, and also mindsets.
Excellent. And I thank you all for your superb questions on Slido. I think some of them have been covered very ably by our panelists, but unfortunately we've run out of time. But I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the panel, Sebastien, Denise, Yaron, and Richard, and thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a lovely day.